Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're diving straight into something that trips up even seasoned coders, the ICD-10 CM sequencing rules for abortion encounters. We're going to break down exactly how to sequence your codes when a maternal condition or a suspected fetal condition is in the mix. If you've ever caught yourself staring at a chart, second-guessing which code actually goes first in these complex scenarios, you are in the exact right place.
We've got a lot to cover today. We're going to hit the baseline coding rules, walk through a maternal health case study, check out a couple of fetal anomaly case studies, look at what happens with medically necessary terminations, and then wrap it all up with a final review summary. Let's get to it.
Section 1. Baseline coding rules. Establishing the foundation. All right, so the absolute bedrock rule here is this. If a pregnancy is terminated on a purely elective basis, you literally do not need to assign a code for the reason. Simple enough, right? But as we all know, clinical care is rarely that black and white. A lot of times, a maternal condition plays a huge role in that elective decision. When that happens, you can absolutely bring in categories O20 through O29 and O30 through O77 as additional codes. These O codes are game changers because they tell the whole story. They show that, yes, it was an elective encounter, but a specific maternal condition was right there influencing the choice. Moving right along to our maternal health case study focusing on heart disease. Picture this. You've got a patient at 12 completed weeks of gestation. She's admitted for an elective termination because her physician strongly advised it due to severe heart disease. Now, even with this very serious medical context, because the decision is ultimately elective, your principal diagnosis has to be Z33.2, encounter for elective termination of pregnancy. But we definitely don't ignore that heart condition. For your additional diagnoses, you'll bring in O99.411, which covers circulatory system diseases complicating pregnancy in the first trimester. And to nail that specificity, you tack on a third code for the exact heart disease itself. Next up, fetal anomaly case studies, viral disease and anomalies.
So, you might be wondering, how exactly do we sequence an encounter if it's the fetus rather than the mother that has a suspected abnormality? Does that change our principal diagnosis?
Well, it actually doesn't change our principal code at all. Let's say a patient contracted rubella at 6 weeks and requests a termination because she's worried about potential fetal abnormalities. Z33.2, still your principal diagnosis. We capture all that crucial clinical context with the secondary diagnosis, which in this case would be O35.3XX0, maternal care for suspected damage to fetus from viral disease in mother. See how that works? The narrative stays perfectly intact without breaking our golden sequencing rule. Okay, but what if the termination happens later in the pregnancy due to known fetal anomalies? Does the gestational age change things? Nope, it really doesn't. Let's look at a patient who is 26 weeks pregnant and comes in for an elective termination because of known fetal anomalies. Even at 26 weeks, Z33.2 is locked in as that principal diagnosis. The clinical reason just bumps down to an additional diagnosis, which would be O35.9XX0, maternal care for suspected fetal abnormality and damage unspecified. Staying consistent with this is absolutely crucial for accurate ICD-10 CM coding. Quick pause, everyone. If you're finding this breakdown helpful and you like medical coding videos, please make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm constantly putting out medical coding explainers just like this to help you master these tricky guidelines. All right, let's get back to it. All right, part 4, medically necessary terminations, shifting the sequence. So what happens when a physician steps in and determines the procedure is an absolute medical necessity rather than a patient-requested elective procedure? Brace yourselves because here is where our baseline rule completely flips. Imagine a first trimester patient is admitted with placenta previa. She didn't request a termination, but after evaluating everything, the physician concludes it is medically necessary. She consents, and they proceed. In this specific scenario, the code for the underlying condition, the placenta previa, or O44.01, has to be sequenced first. The abortion code gets bumped down to the secondary position. Since it wasn't an elective encounter initiated by the patient, Z33.2 gets totally tossed out of that first listed spot. The medical necessity takes the wheel. Finally, our final review summary. Case studies at a glance. Putting it all side by side makes it so much clearer, doesn't it? Just look at our first 3 scenarios: severe heart disease, rubella risk, and fetal anomalies. These are all elective terminations. And even though they are driven by some very severe conditions, they all keep Z33.2 right there as the principal diagnosis.
We just capture those influencing factors in the secondary O codes. But the second a procedure becomes strictly medically necessary, like our placenta previa case, bam, the maternal condition takes the top spot and the abortion code follows. This is basically your ultimate cheat sheet for these guidelines.
You know, at the end of the day, medical coding is really about translating a complex human experience into accurate data. So the next time you're applying these guidelines, I want you to ask yourself, when clinical circumstances shift from elective to medically necessary, does your coding sequence reflect the true narrative of patient care? Paying attention to that exact distinction is what separates compliant coding from truly accurate coding. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.